Have you ever heard of the Nephilim? Who were they? And where did they come from? Are they the same as the giants mentioned in the Bible? And what does the Bible say about them? If you want to learn the answers to these questions and discover the truth about the Nephilim, then stay tuned, because in this video, I'm going to reveal to you the mystery and the controversy behind the Nephilim, the giants in the Bible. The word Nephilim comes from the Hebrew word nephil, which means to fall. Some scholars interpret this as meaning the fallen ones, implying that they were the offspring of fallen angels and human women. Others suggest that it means the ones who cause others to fall, implying that they were violent and corrupt. The Nephilim are first mentioned in Genesis 6:1-4, where it says, "When human beings began to increase in number on the earth, and daughters were born to them, the sons of God saw that the daughters of humans were beautiful, and they married any of them they chose. Then the Lord said, 'My spirit will not contend with humans forever, for they are mortal. Their days will be 120 years. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God came to the daughters of humans and had children by them. They were the heroes of old, men of renown. Genesis 6:1-4 NIV. This passage raises a lot of questions, such as, who were the sons of God? Were they angels or humans? How did they have children with human women? Were the Nephilim the result of this union? And what did they look like? The Bible does not give us clear answers to these questions, and different interpretations have been proposed over the centuries. Let's take a look at some of the main views and see what evidence they have. One view is that the sons of God were fallen angels, also known as demons, who rebelled against God and left their heavenly abode to cohabit with human women. This view is based on the assumption that the term sons of God refers to angels, as it does in some other passages in the Old Testament, such as Job 1:6-2:1. This view also claims that the Nephilim were the hybrid offspring of this unnatural and sinful union, and that they were giants, or at least very tall and strong. This view is supported by some ancient Jewish and Christian writings, such as the Book of Enoch and the Book of Jubilees, which are not part of the Bible, but reflect some of the beliefs and traditions of the time. This view also tries to explain the origin of demons, the cause of the Great Flood, and the reason for God's command to destroy the Canaanites, who were said to be descendants of the Nephilim. According to this view, the fallen angels, or the sons of God, were attracted by the beauty of the human women, or the daughters of men, and they took them as wives, or more likely, as sexual partners. They violated the natural order of creation and corrupted the human gene pool. Their offspring, the Nephilim, were half human and half angelic, and they inherited the physical and spiritual characteristics of both. They were giants, or at least very tall and strong, and they were also wicked and violent. They spread evil and violence on the earth, and they oppressed and devoured the people. They were also called the heroes of old, or the men of renown, because they were famous for their deeds, but not in a good way. They were more like the villains or the monsters of the ancient myths and legends. This view is based on some biblical and extra-biblical sources, such as the term sons of God is used to refer to angels in some other passages in the Old Testament, such as Job 1:6-2:1, where it says, "One day the angels came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan also came with them." Job 1:6 NIV. The term Nephilim is derived from the Hebrew word nephil, which means to fall, and it implies that they were the offspring of the fallen angels, or the ones who caused others to fall. The term giants is used to translate the Hebrew word Nephilim in some versions of the Bible, such as the King James Version and the New American Standard Bible, and it suggests that they were very tall and strong. The Book of Enoch, which is an ancient Jewish writing that is not part of the Bible, but that is quoted by some of the New Testament writers, such as Jude and Peter, gives a detailed account of the fallen angels and their offspring, and names them as the Watchers and the Nephilim. The Book of Jubilees, which is another ancient Jewish writing that is not part of the Bible, but that is considered canonical by some of the Ethiopian and Eritrean churches, also gives a similar account of the fallen angels and their offspring, and names them as the Watchers and the Nephilim. Another view is that the sons of God were godly men from the line of Seth, who was the third son of Adam and Eve and the ancestor of Noah. This view is based on the assumption that the term sons of God refers to believers, as it does in some other passages in the New Testament, such as John 1:12 and Romans 8:14. This view also claims that the daughters of humans were ungodly women from the line of Cain, who was the first son of Adam and Eve and the first murderer. This view also suggests that the Nephilim were not the offspring of this union, but rather a separate group of people who existed before and after the flood, and that they were not necessarily giants, but rather mighty warriors or tyrants. This view is supported by some early church fathers, such as Augustine and Chrysostom, who rejected the idea of angels mating with humans as absurd and heretical. This view also tries to explain the moral decline of humanity, the need for salvation, and the contrast between the righteous and the wicked. According to this view, the godly men, or the sons of God, were the descendants of Seth, who was born after Cain killed Abel, and who was a faithful worshipper of God. They were the ones who called on the name of the Lord, and who walked with God, and who preserved the knowledge and the fear of God. They were the ones who were chosen by God to carry on the human race after the flood. The ungodly women, or the daughters of men, were the descendants of Cain, who was cursed by God for killing his brother, and who went away from the presence of the Lord. They were the ones who followed the way of Cain, and who multiplied wickedness and violence on the earth, and who corrupted the worship and the service of God. They were the ones who were doomed to perish in the flood. This view also suggests that the Nephilim were not the offspring of this union, but rather a separate group of people who existed before and after the flood, and that they were not necessarily giants, but rather mighty warriors or tyrants. They were the ones who were called the heroes of old, or the men of renown, because they were famous for their strength and skill, but not for their godliness or righteousness. They were the ones who dominated and oppressed the people, and who defied God and his laws. They were the ones who were also judged by God, and who were either killed in the flood or by the Israelites when they entered the promised land. This view is based on some biblical and historical sources, such as the term sons of God is used to refer to believers in some other passages in the New Testament, such as John 1:12 and Romans 8:14, where it says, "Yet to all who did receive him, to those who believed in his name, he gave the right to become children of God." John 1:12, NI5. And, "For those who are led by the Spirit of God are the children of God." Romans 8:14, NIV. The term daughters of men is used to refer to human women in general, and not to a specific group of women, as it does in some other passages in the Old Testament, such as Deuteronomy 32:8, where it says, "When the Most High gave the nations their inheritance, when he divided all mankind, he set up boundaries for the peoples according to the number of the sons of Israel." Deuteronomy 32:8, NIV. The term Nephilim is used to refer to a separate group of people who existed before and after the flood, and not to the offspring of the sons of God and the daughters of men, as it does in some other passages in the Old Testament, such as Numbers 13:33, where it says, "We saw the Nephilim there, the descendants of Anak come from the Nephilim. We seemed like grasshoppers in our own eyes, and we looked the same to them." Numbers 13:33, NIV. The line of Seth and the line of Cain are contrasted in the Bible as representing the righteous and the wicked, as it does in some other passages in the Old Testament, such as Genesis 4:25, 26 and 5, 1, 32, where it says, "Adam made love to his wife again, and she gave birth to a son and named him Seth, saying, 'God has granted me another child in place of Abel, since Cain killed him.' Seth also had a son, and he named him Enosh. At that time, people began to call on the name of the Lord. Genesis 4:25, 26, NIV. And this is the written account of Adam's family line. When God created mankind, he made them in the likeness of God. He created them male and female and blessed them, and he named them mankind when they were created. When Adam had lived 130 years, he had a son in his own likeness, in his own image, and he named him Seth. After Seth was born, Adam lived 800 years and had other sons and daughters. Altogether, Adam lived a total of 930 years, and then he died. When Seth had lived 105 years, he became the father of Enosh. After he became the father of Enosh, Seth lived 807 years and had other sons and daughters. Altogether, Seth lived a total of 912 years, and then he died. When Enosh had lived 90 years, he became the father of Canaan. After he became the father of Canaan, Enosh lived 815 years and had other sons and daughters. Altogether, Enosh lived a total of 905 years, and then he died. When Canaan had lived 70 years, he became the father of Mahalalel. After he became the father of Mahalalel, Canaan lived 840 years and had other sons and daughters. Altogether, Canaan lived a total of 910 years, and then he died. When Mahalalel had lived 65 years, he became the father of Jared. After he became the father of Jared, Mahalalel lived 830 years and had other sons and daughters. Altogether, Mahalalel lived a total of 895 years, and then he died. When Jared had lived 162 years, he became the father of Enoch. After he became the father of Enoch, Jared lived 800 years and had other sons and daughters. Altogether, Jared lived a total of 962 years, and then he died. When Enoch had lived 65 years, he became the father of Methuselah. After he became the father of Methuselah, Enoch walked faithfully with God 300 years and had other sons and daughters. Altogether, Enoch lived a total of 365 years. Enoch walked faithfully with God, then he was no more, because God took him away. When Methuselah had lived 187 years, he became the father of Lamech. After he became the father of Lamech, Methuselah lived 782 years and had other sons and daughters. Altogether, Methuselah lived a total of 969 years, and then he died. When Lamech had lived 182 years, he had a son. He named him Noah and said, "He will comfort us in the labor and painful toil of our hands, caused by the ground the Lord has cursed." After Noah was born, Lamech lived 595 years and had other sons and daughters. Altogether, Lamech lived a total of 777 years, and then he died. After Noah was 500 years old, he became the father of Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Genesis 5:1-32 NIV. A third view is that the sons of God were human rulers or kings who claimed divine authority and power, and who oppressed and exploited the people under their dominion. This view is based on the assumption that the term sons of God refers to royalty, as it does in some other passages in the ancient Near East, such as Psalm 2:7 and 2, Samuel 7:14. This view also claims that the daughters of humans were the women who were taken as wives or concubines by these rulers, and that they had no choice or consent in the matter. This view also suggests that the Nephilim were the children of this union, and that they inherited the traits and privileges of their fathers, and that they were giants, or at least very influential and powerful. This view is supported by some modern scholars who see parallels between the biblical account and other ancient myths and legends, such as the Epic of Gilgamesh and the Greek mythology. This view also tries to explain the social and political corruption of the world, the abuse of power and wealth, and the injustice and violence that prevailed. According to this view, the human rulers, or the sons of God, were the kings and the nobles who ruled over the ancient civilizations such as Mesopotamia, Egypt, and Canaan. They were the ones who claimed to be divine or to have a special relationship with the gods, and who demanded worship and obedience from their subjects. They were the ones who amassed power and wealth, and who built great cities and monuments, and who waged wars and conquered lands. They were the ones who took many women as wives or concubines, and who treated them as property or as trophies. They violated the dignity and the rights of the people, and corrupted the order and the harmony of the creation. The women, or the daughters of men, were the victims of their lust and greed, and they had no say or control over their lives. They were the ones who suffered and who cried out to God for help. This view also suggests that the Nephilim were the offspring of this union, and that they inherited the traits and privileges of their fathers, and that they were giants, or at least very influential and powerful. They were the ones who were called the heroes of old, or the men of renown, because they were famous for their achievements, but not for their morality or integrity. They were the ones who followed the footsteps of their fathers, and who continued to oppress and exploit the people, and who defied God and his laws. They were the ones who were also judged by God, and who were either killed in the flood or by the Israelites when they entered the promised land. This view is based on some biblical and historical sources, such as the term sons of God is used to refer to royalty in some other passages in the ancient Near East, such as Psalm 2:7 and 2 Samuel 7:14, where it says, "I will proclaim the Lord's decree. He said to me, 'You are my son. Today I have become your father.'" Psalm 2:7 NI 5, "And I will be his father, and he will be my son. When he does wrong, I will punish him with a rod wielded by men, with floggings inflicted by human hands." 2 Samuel 7:14 NIV. The term daughters of men is used to refer to women in general, and not to a specific group of women, as it does in some other passages in the Old Testament, such as Deuteronomy 32:8, where it says, "When the Most High gave the nations their inheritance, when he divided all mankind, he set up boundaries for the peoples according to the number of the sons of Israel." Deuteronomy 32:8 NIV. The term Nephilim is used to refer to a group of people who were very influential and powerful, and not necessarily giants, as it does in some other passages in the Old Testament, such as Ezekiel 32:27, where it says, "Do they not lie with the other uncircumcised warriors who have fallen, who went down to the grave with their weapons of war, whose swords were placed under their heads? The punishment for their sins rested on their bones, though the terror of these warriors had stalked through the land of the living." Ezekiel 32:27 NIV. The Epic of Gilgamesh, which is an ancient Mesopotamian poem that is not part of the Bible, but that is one of the oldest surviving works of literature, tells the story of Gilgamesh, who was a king of Uruk, and who claimed to be 2/3 God and 1/3 human. He was a hero who performed great deeds, but he was also a tyrant who oppressed his people and who took any woman he desired. He was challenged by Enkidu, who was a wild man created by the gods to be his equal, and who became his friend and companion. Together, they went on a quest to find the secret of immortality, but they failed, and Enkidu died. Gilgamesh then mourned for his friend and searched for a way to escape death, but he also failed and returned to his city, where he realized the value of his life and his legacy. See the Epic of Gilgamesh, translated by N.K. Sanders. The Greek mythology, which is a collection of ancient Greek stories that are not part of the Bible, but that reflect some of the beliefs and traditions of the ancient Greeks, tells the story of the gods and the heroes, who were the offspring of the gods and the humans. They were the ones who performed great feats, but they were also flawed and sinful. They were the ones who fought and loved and died. They were the ones who influenced the history and the culture of the ancient world. See the Greek Myths by Robert Graves. So which view is correct? Well, the truth is, we don't know for sure. The Bible does not give us enough information to settle the debate, and each view has its strengths and weaknesses. The most important thing is not to get distracted by the details, but to focus on the main message of the story, which is that God saw the wickedness of the human race and decided to judge them with a great flood. But he also showed mercy and grace to Noah and his family, who found favor in his eyes, and he saved them from the destruction and made a covenant with them and promised to never flood the earth again. The story of the Nephilim is not meant to satisfy our curiosity, but to challenge our faith and obedience. It is meant to remind us that God is holy and righteous, and that he hates sin and evil, and that he will punish those who rebel against him. But he is also loving and compassionate, and that he offers forgiveness and salvation to those who repent and trust in him.